Good afternoon. Welcome to the, what is today? The May 16th Tourist Development Council Budget Workshop. David Baer and Danielle, the meeting was properly advertised.
Yes, on May 11th.
Awesome. And please call roll.
Jeff Bogash. James Reeves. Mary Hoxing.
Here.
Shirley Conley.
Here.
David Baer.
Here.
Ronald Rivera. Matish Patel. Tinya Day Broughton. And Casey Jones.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We do have quorum. Great. Thank you so much. All right. So last year, when we did this workshop, I presented a proposed budget that I had put together. And Stephen Hall at the county budget office sent me a proposal that the county had put together that he was working on because he's been working on the budget. So what you have in front of you is a copy of, first last year's, the first column is last year's, I say last year, the current year budget. The middle one is what Stefan had on his budget, and then on the right is what I've listed. There are some changes and there are some blanks that we need to discuss. Behind that page, that one page, are copies of some requests that were sent to me that did not go through the county's application process that were due back in March or April. They were submitted directly to us through me, and so I'm providing copies of those to you. They're not the complete packets because I didn't think I needed to print, but it shows their request and we can discuss those. But I didn't think we needed to get presentations from all of the outside agencies today, but I would like to ask Stefan if he would come up and discuss.
Before you do that.
Yes, sir.
Where is, I only have 3 columns on mine.
That's all there is. There's the current year is the first column. The second column is the county OMB proposal for 2023-24. And then the proposed is what I put together that is for, I think, for discussion purposes. It's not what I'm saying we should do. I'm saying it's just a starting place. But those 3 columns. So Stefan, if you would please come on down. And Danielle has printed, you'll see the pages that were already at your seat. There's one that is in black that has an outline. It's from Stefan that shows the outside agency requests for the adopted 2023 and the requested 24. That is what he sent to us the other day.
Okay, good afternoon, council members. So basically, what I've been working on is a budget of roughly $22.7 million. That is also predicated on $20 million of revenue from the tourist development tax for next year. I kind of broke down what I gave to you in more consolidated groupings, but $600,000 for the cost allocation portion. 12.7 roughly I have for the VP Unified. They did ask for 13 million to be clear and transparent on that. So if that is approved by the council, I'd need to add that 270 back in.
What column were you in?
This is just something that I did.
So-
So it's not
Yeah,
a
he does-
particular column. It's a consolidated explanation. So aids to private organizations, I got roughly 1.195 million budgeted there. So also that does include the $500,000 for American Magic. Our marine resources budget is roughly 373,000. Reserves are budgeted at roughly 5.5 million. 126,000 for the Pensacola Beach mowing services. Just $750,000 for projects, $1.5 million for the Bay Center transfer.
Hey, Danielle, will you give Stefan a copy of that?
Yes,
Packet that again.
I do not have a copy of that.
Thank you, I apologize. I came running in. So, well, so I don't have a copy. I didn't provide a copy of the separate email that you sent me with all of the different line items. I noticed in there, though, that you had for beach renourishment, 1.5 million, and then right below it in that line, another $500,000.
So, Pensacola Beach Renourishment, I have reserves at 500,000, and then we have reserves for BCC projects at 1.3. In the information that I provided to you. So I generally budget for those beach reserves as part of this process, not beach reserves, the beach renourishment. And then the 1.3 is the old debt service payment.
So that wasn't on what you sent me. Hold on.
That's what I have on mine. That's what I printed from the email that I sent you.
Oh, you're right, it does say 1.3. So the 1.3 million is for the old debt service, the debt service has been paid off.
Correct. I have instructions from some of my board that was something that the board wanted to do, was to keep
Okay.
that in that line item and just kind of keep that as an annual budgeted reserve. So that is the direction that I've received.
Okay, in addition to the 5th cent.
Yes,
So there's the 5th cent, which is 4 million minus administration and reserves,
correct.
which you have at 3,680,000, and also a $1.3 million.
That is
reserve.
correct.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, and I think the thought process there is the Bay Center needs a lot of work. I brought probably 3, 4, 5 times the modernization. Let's do something. Right now, we are having a firm give us an assessment of the Bay Center, what we need. And I think the thought process is we need to save up that money because we're going to put a lot of money into the Bay Center. No one has the will to do anything else. It's been brought before the board multiple times. Meanwhile, we never want to have an act come to town and like Barry Manilow or a big name and, the HVAC system goes out or something. The ice plant goes out, the ice flyers are in a championship, things like that. So I think that's the thought process, just so you guys all know. Not speaking for them, but that was my sense of it.
So we created a bunch of restricted funds that we approved and the county commission accepted and approved. And one of those funds was for public facilities. And so each year we have a schedule of how that fund continues to grow through allocations with reserves. And I don't know what the balance is of that. And I don't know if, I didn't ask Stefan to bring those, but is this 1.3 million in addition to all of that? Or are you saying that's?
I believe it is. It's just gonna be another pot of money that we can use to do all these repairs to the Bay Center that are so desperately needed. So Stefan, how much do we have in there? Do we got 2.6 in there now, or how much is in that cumulative?
Sure, Commissioner. I have that information. I don't have it pulled up in front of me right here. But to be clear, so what happens is, and what the council's policy is when we do the fund balance roll forward, that's when that policy kicks in and it adds to those rolling amounts. So each year it gets bigger. So I add to with the extra money that happens on an annualized basis. So again, this is basically the start of the process. And if this money wasn't spent, it does get applied to the policy. This is just the recurring portion that we would have normally budgeted for the debt services.
Okay. And so Commissioner, what is the 5th cent being reserved for?
I think that's the same thing, or if we decide to do the field house proposal that Visit Pensacola put forward, because we'll need money for that too. So, and I think that was part of the deal that we made when we got the 5th cent, we got the hoteliers on board. They got it all for marketing the first year, with the stipulation that after that, it would come back and it would be put into reserve. I think that was the deal that we struck, if I remember right.
Let me ask the
Yes, sir.
question. The way I read the statute is that we make a recommendation to the county commission, and then they either approve it or disapprove it the way we've recommended. I think that's important for us to know, because what's happening is we're getting recommended what to do. I mean, it's working just the reverse of the way it's supposed to work, as far as I'm concerned. Not that I am emotional about it one way or the other, but I think about all the time we spend, and I hope it's just not spinning our wheels, and county commission approves our recommendation or disapproves it, in my opinion.
So if they disapprove, then it should come back to us
Right, absolutely.
before a final approval.
And it could come back and say, we don't want to spend this on that particular thing. We recommend that you recommend that we spend it on wine, women, and song,
Right. So I agree with you. I think, that's been my reading, and I do know that the county commission has approved different line items than what we had recommended, like certainly last year when we recommended and even had the clerk's office stand up and talk about what administrative fee that they would be willing to accept and they could work from. What was actually implemented was significantly different. And in this sheet that Stefan sent, it shows that the county administrative costs were $562,500. And as I recall, last year, they had agreed to like $315,000. And so, and I know that the clerk had said, well, at the end of the year, we'll do I can't recall the language she uses, a correction. But that's just to, I think that when she says that, that's to ensure she doesn't exceed the statutory limit of 3%. It's not based on an actual cost analysis. We've continued to talk about that specific issue, but I bring that specific point up just to show, or I guess to use as an example of, to make your point, Mr. Reeves, that we continue to make these recommendations on this budget, and last year they didn't accept that. They just moved on with whatever it was that they wanted to do.
Yeah, but I don't think they have. It's kind of like we're the fiduciary of the 1 through 5 cents, and they can not spend it on what we recommend, but I don't see how they can not spend it and then spend it on something that we haven't recommended.
If I might interject, that's a great question, a great point, but my sense of it is, from our attorney, is that, we take recommendations, we take advice, we take, initiatives that you guys send forward, and we either accept, reject, or modify, right? Because if it's a loop where we have to go back to you, with all due respect, Mr. Reeves, then that loop might not ever end, and then things might not ever end. And I know that these processes all have an end. So I've asked once again for definitive guidance from the attorney. I know you're an attorney as well. but I have to defer to our attorney, and that's my sense of it. Now, if I'm wrong, I'll stand here corrected, and I'll certainly report that at the next meeting, but that's the way we've acted thus far, because we're not always going to agree. You guys will bring things forward, and getting 5 guys on that board to agree on it, it's not always going to happen. So we don't want to be in a loop forever. We got to keep moving forward. So as soon as I get an answer, I'll provide it to you guys.
Well, the modification is the question that I have. Look at it this way. We spend time recommending this, and if it's just meaningless, then, you know, that means all of our time, including yours, is kind of worthless, so.
And the Florida legislature didn't believe that our time would be worthless. They created the statute that created this board and gave us an obligation to oversee tourist development and make the recommendation. We've made recommendations, and in all due respect, the county and the clerk's office have spent, and the Auditor General showed that these dollars were expended on unauthorized expenditures under the statute that we called out. You know, this board said that these aren't expenditures that are for tourist development. County attorney never stopped those expenditures. The clerk never stopped those expenditures from happening. And so as we're sitting here today trying to come up with a proposed budget to recommend to the county commission, and your attorney saying, hey, you don't have to listen to them. You can do whatever you want.
But I don't want to put words in her mouth. Maybe it wasn't.
Well, I mean,
wasn't just like that.
Those were my words, but I mean, ultimately, that's what you're saying. That's what, we just make a recommendation, and it can be accepted, it can be denied, it can be changed, it can be done whatever. And what we now find ourselves in the position of is having budgeted the items that are unauthorized under the statute that was found by by the Auditor General, which includes $126,000 for landscaping.
Right.
The county attorney decided, well, there's a quick way to make that change. Let's just make the entire county a nature center. And so anything within the nature center could be beach improvements, beach park improvements, and/or marine resources. And so we'll continue to put the money in the budget. But that resolution didn't pass this board. It
No.
hasn't passed that board, and yet we have it in the budget. And more than likely, the county commission is going to adopt that as part of their budget. But the Auditor General has already said, these are unauthorized in the statute. So today,
One of the recommendations.
your microphone on, please, sir. Thank you.
One of the recommendations ought to be that we need to hire our own attorney, you see, because the distinction that Commissioner Bagash makes is the county attorney is paid for by the county commission. Now, in my case, it's free, so I can say just about anything, and I don't have to stick to it, you know? But, I mean, modifications, that's all I worry about.
Well, and the other thing, Mr. Chairman, I would say is the board, since that report came out, we've really worked on getting the language tightened up, because we know that some of those issues found in the auditor's report were because our ordinances and our codes didn't line up with some of the expenditures we were making. I mean, we weren't, and I always, please don't take this the wrong way, but I always feel the need, because these things get weaponized against us. So the facts matter, and we were not compelled to pay anything back. We were not sanctioned. We were not censured. We were not disciplined. I just said, look, tighten up your, essentially, the gist of it is, if you read the report, just make sure your ordinances match what you're doing, and that's what we're trying to do right now. But I agree. I mean, if we're doing something to frustrate the intent of the statute, we ought to fix it. The 5 members of the board ought to fix it. So we think we can do that with ordinance changes. But if not, I mean, we'll have to see what happens when the recommendations go from this board to that board.
Right. Well, and the ordinance changes that are necessary should also comply with Attorney General opinions about what a nature center is. It is a focal point. It is not an entire county. Right. And so.
That one hadn't passed yet.
Yes. Yes, sir.
But why don't we just, before we get into a hypothetical conflict with the county commission, why don't we go down the budget the way Where'd he go?
He's sitting in the
And the way you did it, and let's, make some progress in the spirit of unity, harmony, and cooperation.
Chairman, if I
Yes, sir.
could make mention of something. So, as you know, the statute does say up to 3%. So,
not to exceed 3%.
correct. So, but I budget up to 3%. I budget 3%. Now, remember, whatever the actual cost of administration is, and the clerk is booking the actual cost of administration, yes, we know it's going to be some number, or we expect it to be some number less than what's in the budget. If it doesn't get spent, becomes part of your fund balance, then your reserve policy applies to it. Again, these are just budgeted numbers. So I want to be clear to council so that everybody understands that's what those numbers are.
So does she provide you with the actual cost?
Yes,
In what she books? Do you have a copy of what that was
I do.
last year?
I do. I
And
have a
what was-
memo.
How much was credited?
Yes, I have that information, and I did share it at the last tourist development tax meeting, council meeting. So, but that will be an annual memo going forward that does spell out those differences. Also, and I'm not here to speak for the clerk, but I know that she's also taking some internal process changes that she's doing to encapsulate and capture, the full cost, the actual cost, basically really sharpening that pen or pencil on those activities. So I do know that some of those things are happening, and are being actively worked on.
Great, thank you. Okay, so on this sheet that I passed out, that center column does not include the 1.3 million that the commissioners have requested, the former bond payment. So that would take it actually to, according to my formulas, 23 million. Oh, no, you said you reduced the unified budgets request?
Not on purpose. So, but I did realize that today. So, yeah, I still owe them just a little bit of money.
Okay. Trying to do the math.
The additional amount would be $270,000.
270.
So
Yes, sir.
the first three lines, we'd add 1.3 million to that or not?
No, the top three lines are the income. The $20 million,
That's all?
that is what the county is proposing to build the budget off of for the TDT revenue for
So,
next year.
and there's a 5% holdback, right?
Correct, which is the next
So
section, that
it
1
gets us
million.
to 19 million.
Correct.
And it looks to me like the 5th cent, there's a difference between yours and theirs. Why is that?
Let me see.
You've got 3,737,000, they've got 3,680,000. Not that it's a big difference, that's just interesting.
Oh, because the 3,680,000 is the 4 million that they anticipate minus 1/5 of the holdback, which would be $200,000. And then they also have 1/5 of the county administrative costs, the clerks, 600,000 they have budgeted. As you look down, see if you look at the next section where it says county administrative cost, in that center column, he's got 600,000. And in mine, I reduced it to the 315 that we had approved the year before as a starting point for our conversation. And so it's that,
So the difference between his and yours is the difference between 600,000, so it's 285,000. Different.
1/5 of the 285,000. So the difference, the 285,000 is the difference between the cost, the county administrative costs, between what I'm proposing and what the county is proposing. But that comes from all 5 pennies. So if you take only 1/5 of it to account for the 5th cent that's being reserved, then that's the difference. I reduced her fee. And so what is being reserved in my proposal is greater than what the county is saying should be reserved for the 5th cent. Follow?
That's okay, I just want to know the difference between 2465 and 3848, 197. The very next column,
Oh. Well, so the 3848, that next section, are just those items right there in that section. So the difference would be the beach mowing, well, and I apologize, I have 125,000 for his proposal, and that he has 126. And I zeroed that out because the Auditor General said that's unauthorized under the statute. And so I can't, in good faith, recommend that to the county commission to spend. And then he has $750,000 reserved for projects. Those projects have not been identified.
so it's 125, it's 750, and it's 285. Is
And
that
there's
close enough? for
Well, and then
government
there's
work?
the marine resources.
Where is that?
That's that center item in that same section. The county was budgeting 373,197, and I estimated 150,000. The Auditor General also identified many of their expenditures as being unauthorized. A portion of it is for tourist development, but they identified a lot of it as not being.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
that 750, is that 750,000 under 1 through 5 projects? Are those to be announced at some time, or what is?
Well, I'll have to defer to
Yeah.
Stefan for that.
That is a funding placeholder. In the event that any project comes up,
Okay.
I'm not having to pull it out of reserves. It's just a funding placeholder. If there are no BCC additional approved projects, it becomes part of your rolling fund balance. The fund doesn't lose it, it doesn't get spent.
Yeah, that money's
But-
gone.
But it's not something we've recommended.
Correct. We have not recommended it, and one of the things we did recommend is 50% of all of remaining funding would go to the unrestricted Fund 108 for special projects and other types of events.
To be clear with council, that is after the fund balance is calculated.
Correct.
It
And
is
what
the-
is the balance of that fund right now? The unrestricted balance?
I'll get it for you.
It's, as I recall, it's a few $1 million.
So the question
Okay.
becomes, how do we approve something that we don't know what we're approving?
Right.
And that's where the BCC,
Yeah.
this is my understanding of the process.
And listen, I'm absolutely for it, but I don't know statutorily we could do that
You
currently.
know, see, I
Tell
wouldn't
me.
mind
Talk to
doing that if we had the authority to spend it.
Well, I'm sure there's explanation.
Unfortunately,
I'm sure there's an explanation for this.
When a board member finds something they believe falls within the TDT,
Okay.
then
Okay.
they send it down here. That's how we get it.
So,
I
okay.
don't think the board has the ability. By the way, I just received a response from our attorney, and I'll just read it verbatim. In my opinion, the TDC is advisory only. The BCC does not have to send it back. Now, this is important, unless the board morphs it into something totally different and new. So you guys want 150, we want 350, we vote 250. We don't have to send it back. Unless we say, the mowing, you know, we don't agree, so we're gonna spend it on painting, and you never see it. It always comes to you guys first. So the projects, even the placeholders, it's gonna come back to us first. And you guys will either approve it. And most times we work together pretty congenial on that, but that's our attorney's opinion.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Except they don't have to come back to us necessarily. If $750,000 is proposed by the county commission to be spent on beach park improvements, you guys have already shown us that you're not willing to come to us. You're just going to go ahead and approve them at your meeting and spend them, because you don't have to have a economic impact study done. You don't have to come and ask us for approval.
Well, I believe
by
that's one of the
statute.
processes we're going to improve, Mr. Chairman. I believe that's why that's a placeholder. But for instance, if we're going to do some things in Perdido Key for additional tourist visits to the beach, you're going to see it back on this agenda, and it could very possibly come from that fund. That's not just going to be exclusively for one beach. We're going to use that money at both beaches, just like we did for access number 4. But my way of thinking, and based on the auditor and everything else, is that that money's there as a placeholder, as Stefan said, and then, hey, I need $100,000 to match the $1 million we're putting in from Restore and $1 million from my discretionary toward destination beach access. That would come back, that portion would come back here. That's the way I envision it. I don't think we would just pull $100,000 and say, yeah, we'll just take this from TDT. I don't, right, Stefan? I mean, am I wrong?
Yes, sir, you're absolutely correct.
That's the way we're going to do it. Because I think that way, that gives you guys a voice. Now, whether or not you agree with it, if you say, no, we don't want you to spend $100,000 on beach access, even though you're putting $2 million from other sources, I don't think it has to come back to you. We just say, okay, thank you for your opinion.
But we could have the same situation by simply deleting that 750, and then whatever the board wanted to do that wasn't budgeted. See, what I don't like about that is it gives some credibility to, oh, we have 750,000 that we can spend on beach mice or whatever's legally that you could use the money for. So, I mean, they could do the same thing and say, look, you've got an extra 750 in your reserves. We want to do whatever.
Certainly. What I would say to the council, as the commissioner has stated, those requests would still come to this council before we would do any of those type of special projects. You know, I can leave it there. I can put it as a budgeted reserve. It's the same money. If the recommendation from council is to put in reserves, I can make that adjustment. It's fine.
I think the other thing here is we want to make sure that it's for tourism, and I think that's what you said first, Commissioner, that it'd be something for tourism. It's not like we're going to move this money and certainly pave roads, or something like that, something crazy. So first thing out of your mouth was, it's going to be for tourism.
Yeah, absolutely,
So,
and I'll tell you, you all know this, that these monies are very, they're very prescriptive in how they can be used and highly compartmentalized. I mean, other counties, right, other counties to our east can use some of this money to help offset their lifeguards and emergency response. Yeah, but we don't get it because they crafted the legislation for Okaloosa and Walton. It doesn't fit us. So, you know, we're handcuffed. So, but if there's an allowable use and it does enhance tourism like access number 4 does, I'm going to bring it forward. You know, that's just the way it's going to work.
So,
And Chairman, just very quickly, so we had roughly 2.7, 2.8 just in available reserves, not allocated to the policy.
that's unrestricted
Correct.
Fund 108
Correct,
balance,
correct.
2.7, 2.8.
Yes.
Okay, and so this 750 is additional, the 1.3 is additional, and the 5th cent is additional. So in this proposed budget, we've got 3.68 million, 1.3 million, and 750,000 that are being pulled out of the $20 million to put into reserves for a what-if scenario.
For the base center.
Not all for the Bay Center.
I think that's where the lion's share is going to go, but we're going to get that, we're going to get that assessment and that study back, and it's going to show that there's a tremendous amount of deferred maintenance in that building. more than most people want to. And to make it better, it's going to take millions and millions. It was $20 million back in 2018 when I brought it the first time. That was what Cindy Pennington had worked up, and they were going to cost share it. There just hasn't been an appetite to do it, but we've got to do something. Again, we don't want the ice plant breaking down during the championship game. We don't want, the air conditioner to go out when we've got the Sun Belt basketball tournament, right? We just don't want these things to happen. And those are all tourist-related situations.
And I think whatever we need to spend on the Bay Center, I don't think anybody's anti, making sure the ceiling tiles aren't falling out of the Bay Center.
Yeah, I agree. I know that we can bond to the 5th cent, so that if we're going to do a project like that, the county can issue the bond and use the 5th cent as the funding mechanism. That's what the statute allows.
We had that proposal. 2 different groups brought that forward, with Jay Patel and then another group. There wasn't an appetite on the board to do it. But I know it's
To make
something.
the improvements that you're
Oh,
referencing,
absolutely.
that you're trying to put these monies aside.
Absolutely,
that-
yes.
that They don't necessarily need to be put aside in the 1.3 or the $750,000 in this current year, in addition to the,
But the more of that we have, the less we have to bond, and the less the debt service would be.
right, also the less that we get to market the area for tourism, to continue to generate more tax revenue
But,
for LOST, for tourist development.
You're preaching to
tax.
the choir,
but the
right?
difference in the third section of numbers is $1,383,197 because of the difference in the collection fee you allowed versus what the county budgeted, so to speak. The 125,000, the 750,000, and the 285. So that's 1,383,197 from the number we were presented, and that's how you got to 2,465,000.
Yes, sir.
My question is, you agreed 100% with the county's numbers on outside agencies.
I put that in this budget as a starting point, but I also attached to the packet that I gave you other requests that came in.
It's
that-
okay, I
that I'm
just
open
want
to
to, I
consider.
want to
Yes, sir.
understand the trouble that you went to, and basically, they've got 971 and you've got 971.
Yes, sir.
We
just
can
because I
modify
copied-
that.
Yes, I
and
just
make a
copied that
different
over.
recommendation. But as far as this piece of paper is concerned, now, at the bottom, you got exactly the same number as the county has. Is that correct?
Well, yes and no. On this paper, yes. But what Stefan said he had done was there's 2.7 million. The unified budget requested 13 million, and UWF Historic Trust requested 225,000. And that's what I show in both columns, the 13,225,000. But Stefan, on the sheet that he gave to me, was shy $270,000. And so, and I did not
But do you
put that
have
in
the
here.
270 on this sheet?
Yes. I don't have that short, no, I have the exact same thing.
Okay, so it needs 270 to be added to,
It needs to be subtracted from the center column. I have the 270 in the third column. I put 13 million that the unified budget requested and the 225,000 the unified budget requested. That's why it's 13,225,000.
so you have the right numbers, never mind a letter that he sent you.
Correct.
You have the right numbers, and so did he, if you believe this.
I told you, I made an error in that bottom section on the center column because I included the 13 million instead of the $270,000 less, what was in the email from Stefan.
Okay. Do I add 270 to the 13,225,000, or do
No.
I subtract 270 from 13,225,000?
You subtract 270 from 13,225,000 in the center column.
And should he also, in the center column, do the same thing?
He has that on his email that he sent me. That's why I'm telling you to subtract it. If you want to match the center column with the email that he sent me, subtract 270,000 from that
For
bottom
both
line.
columns?
Just the one column. The one on the right is not to match his column, his sheet. It is what I'm proposing as a starting point for this conversation. And what I started with was what the unified budget and UWF had requested.
Okay, I understand the difference in what the county arbitrarily proposed based on certain factors. I understand that. And then you propose a different set of figures in some cases, and I understand in the BOCC county administration, I understand what the difference is there. I also understand that we can increase the outside agencies or decrease them or whatever. That's a starting point. What I don't understand is why we would have 13,225 plus 270. What did you do?
We don't.
Okay.
All right, if
If
Jim,
everybody else understands that, I just want them to explain it to me.
well, I'll explain it to you. If you look at the bottom section, which is in bold, says VP Unified Budget. Those 4 different line items, ACE, Pensacola Sports, Visit Pensacola, and the 4th cent UWF Historic Preservation. In the center column, just the center column, not the left column, not the right column, the center column. It shows 13,225,000. I made a mistake when I wrote that number. So if you want to, trying to map what the county was arbitrarily proposing, using your word, if you want to match theirs, take the $270,000 out of it. And that is what they proposed.
What would the number be, indulge me, for that section of numbers because I don't understand how you made a mistake in the center column. That ain't your numbers.
Correct. The number that should be there is 12,955,000. That's taking 13,225,000 and subtracting $270,000 from it.
So he's at 12,900 and you're at 13,225.
Yes, sir.
Got it. Okay, now what else do we need to do?
Well, we need to discuss and make a
Okay,
recommendation.
I make a motion that we take this, the 750, the 125, we reduce the 373, 197 to 315. We reduce that third section by 1,383,197. Do you understand how I got that number?
I think you got that number by taking the beach mowing, $125,000 out, the project, $750,000 out, reducing the marine resource budget from 373,197 to 150,000.
Which is 223, 197.
Yes, sir.
Reduction.
Yes, sir. And reducing the county administrative costs from 600,000 to 315,000, which is
So
a
that's-
285,000
That's 285,000.
reduction.
So that totals 1,383,197. 197.
Yes, sir. So it matches what I have in the third column in that, for that section. That's what you're proposing. So you made a motion on the portion of the budget, or is that,
No, I just made a motion to bring, I'm trying to bring the proposed budget in line with what you proposed.
okay?
Now, if somebody else has got a better idea, I'm all in favor of that. It's 10 minutes to 4.
Well, if I might, Jim, this is a budget workshop. This isn't a meeting. I don't know if it's appropriate for us to make motion seconds and make votes under Robert's rules. We talk it through, maybe a straw vote. I don't even think we need to go to a full motion because it's a workshop.
Right, and we're gonna bring this, whatever we decide today, we'll bring to our next TDC meeting. For-
Okay, well, I recommend that we casually decide that this number should be reduced by 1,383,197 so that it matches the third column. That's my recommendation, and I would casually see if anybody else feels that way.
And that, is that what you're casually recommending as a final recommendation?
Not for the whole budget,
Okay,
only that.
just for that section? Oh, I can accept that.
Okay, well, can we have a straw poll?
Well, yeah. How do you feel about it, Ronnie?
5 minutes to 4 now. I feel good about it.
You feel good about
Yeah,
that section?
yeah,
I
that's
feel
a-
good about that
I
section.
can get there.
Shirley, Mary?
I can get there.
Commissioner?
I'm fine with it. Because this vote's part, and then there's part two,
Yeah.
so I'm fine with whatever this board puts forward.
Okay.
I'm fine with it.
And I'll call you right now.
What's next?
All right, so under the second, that next section, the BOCC/outside agency allocations, all I carried forward was what the county, what Stefan,
recommended.
yeah, Stefan was recommending. And we can start that discussion. I've included some other requests that we've received from Mardi Gras Pensacola, from Pensacon, from the Santa Rosa Island Authority, and from the Pensacola Beach Chamber.
Let me ask you this.
Yes, sir.
What is the Santa Rosa Island Authority in dollars? What are they asking?
Well, I think the one you're holding is actually the Pensacon, but the
250.
Island Authority was asking for 250,000.
Okay,
They did not put a dollar amount into their request. They just
Okay,
asked for us to
do we-
support them.
do we want them to tell us casually why they're asking for another 250, or do you want to let's just casually approve it?
The Island Authority has not asked us for any funding. The Pensacola Beach Chamber is separate from the
Okay,
Island.
Yeah, you got an island authority right
So
here.
that is the 250,000 that they are requesting. Why, are you saying, get them to come up and tell us why they're asking for it?
No, he just asked, do you want to move them, casually move them along, or do you want to hear from them?
What would you like?
Whatever way you think we've been dutifully diligent about it. So I could casually say I'm in favor of it. But I don't want to speak for everybody else. They may enjoy the Santa Rosa Island Authority or the Chamber of Commerce, whoever's asking for the 250.
Santa Rosa.
Yeah, the Santa Rosa Island Authority is asking for $250,000 to help defray the costs of running the trolleys at the beach. They have a Attorney General opinion that states that those are authorized uses so long as they market the use of the trolley system for tourism development. And they're not just replacing expenditure, an ordinary expenditure, like just to run ECAT as an example. That's something that the county provides. It's not tourist development, and so that would not be authorized. But using the trolleys to help support tourism development, the Attorney General has authorized that, has stated it's an authorized
Well,
expenditure.
I think
Yeah,
that, it is my opinion that they have spoken individually with almost every member of this board, and based on that and the logic behind it, I would casually suggest that we increase them by 250,000.
I'm going to be supportive of that motion when it gets time.
Me too.
I think Santa Rosa Island Authority is doing a great job with these trolleys. I think it's important to have them on the beach because when tourists come here, they need something that's reliable on that beach. And every day we get further and further down this road about traffic out there. I mean, trolleys are just a godsend. So, and it's time for us to upgrade something new, maybe something fun. How about that? I'm going to be supportive.
All right. Would anybody like to discuss any of the others?
Yeah, let's have a discussion real quick about Mardi Gras Inc.
Okay.
Mardi Gras Inc., Danny has done a lot of work in the past to bring tourism to our community. I know that we've all had an opportunity to look through the PowerPoint that he gave us. I'm going to be supportive of this. I hope everybody on this board is supportive of this moving forward. And I'll tell you honestly, when we come back to the next meeting, I'm going to make a motion, pretty strong motion to support this. And I hope everybody here does. Danny, would you like to say a couple words, or not so much? You're good either way. Yeah, that's fine. But I'd like to look a little straw poll right now, Mr. Reeves. A little straw poll myself. I'm going to be supportive of this, and I hope everybody is as well.
Mr. Reeves?
Does it support tourism?
He says it does.
It does, in
The
fact.
executive summary I attached
Yeah.
came from
Yeah.
the Downs and St. Germain.
My concern is with the principals involved.
I don't blame you. Are you now on that new board?
Well, look, this motion's going to stand the test of time, even though these guys, they started, they might not be here forever. So that's kind of the point of this. Make sure that this program's around forever for Escambia County.
Yeah, of course, I'm going to support it as well. But the other question I have is, I really think we need to do something for New Year's Eve as well. I mean, Pensacola used to do something really cool. That fell apart. I've talked to Walker Wilson. I'm going to put some of my own discretionary money into it. But there's this component of people that do come to Pensacola for New Year's Eve, and they get here, and then there's nothing, no central thing. So I don't see anything in this budget. So I'd like to know if we're doing casual straw polls. I'd like to bring back the Pelican Drop. I mean, last year it was not an insignificant number of people that went to Mobile because at least they had the moon pie drop.
I went to New Orleans.
Yeah, I went to Mobile with the shootings and everything. It was still better. I mean,
Shouldn't
I
we
was
send
in
them to the beach?
Brownsville.
Shouldn't we send them to the beach for the fireworks show that we're
well,
paying for?
I think
Part
there's
of
some
this
downtown
proposed
businesses who would like them downtown, right?
budget. Yeah, I agree.
Or have an option as well. Did you have anything in mind?
I don't know, maybe a $50,000 placeholder. I know it was a lot of money. The crane guy that used to lift it donated his time, and we just got to they just need funding. And the county, I'm going to put some forward. I'd like this board too. Maybe we can get some from Downtown Improvement Board, just cobble it together, some sponsors.
Do we know what the cost was
I
originally?
want to say it's right around $200,000 to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're looking for maybe 50 around?
Yeah, I think it's reasonable. I mean, Pensacola,
So should
why
we wait
should
for
people
them
drive
to
to Mobile
ask?
and spend money there? Buy hotel rooms there and drinks there? They should be
Or
here
New
in
Orleans?
Pensacola.
Yeah, same thing. Same
Yeah,
thing.
let's bring it
David?
back here.
Is
Mr.
she
Chairman?
going to ask for
Yeah, is there somebody that can,
I'm asking, no, I don't know if I can. Look, I'll talk to Walker Wilson. Maybe
Downtown
he can
Improvement Board.
run point on it, or I don't know, maybe Danny Zimmern, come on,
How
Danny.
much does it cost, Danny?
about 200?
200,000?
Okay.
Inflation, 200, yeah. Maybe 250.
I would be supportive of that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm there.
Okay.
Even though, can I ask a question? Even though Pensacon is not here, I think we, oh, you are? Okay,
Yes, they
I'm
are here.
sorry.
They are here. They just didn't put a dollar amount in there.
Okay. Can we ask, do you have a dollar amount that you're looking for?
We're looking for somewhere in the neighborhood of 50,000.
I would think that's very reasonable for that event. You do a wonderful job, and I would strongly support that.
How much did she say?
50?
So we got the 50 for the moon drop, 50 for Pensacon.
250
we
for
have-
Mardi Gras Inc. 250 for Mardi Gras Inc.
And 250 for the Island Authority.
So
And then
500.
what is the chamber's ask?
The chamber was 250 as well. It's not the chamber, it's San Rosa Island
That's
Authority.
additional funding.
Boy, you guys have got this, I mean, is it 250 regardless of who's asking?
It's a 250 day here. Yeah.
Okay, so is there anybody else that wrote a letter that wanted money?
No, there were just
No,
those
sir.
4.
Okay, so we've covered every single request.
We have covered every request. If you'll notice, there's one thing that is on that sheet, Summerfest. The current year, they're receiving $75,000. Last year, we told them they committed to us in converting their agency to a not-for-profit because they wanted some recurring funds instead of us using tourist development tax to continue to pick winners and losers by funding for-profit businesses recurring. And they committed to it, and then they didn't do that, and they went directly to the county, and the county funded it through their appropriations, at one of their meetings. And so,
But through money that belongs to the county.
tourist development tax,
Okay, well then,
they just went around us, and they went ahead and approved it because they can show that they support and grow tourism.
so have they become a nonprofit?
They have not. They're not,
Okay,
they don't
I
plan to.
cordially recommend that we not recommend that they be funded until they comply with what you recommended last summer.
Well, and they didn't actually, I don't believe, Stefan, they did not make a request to the county. They continue to get it every year, but this year they haven't submitted any requests.
They do have their nonprofit status, so they do have it, but there was a request to go through their for-profit. There was statutory authority, and I believe there was an AGO. We cited that. That clearly allowed that decision to be made. The allocation had been supported, yes, with those particular caveats. But we moved forward with funding the allocation because it had previously been approved.
So where is that 75,000 in the numbers you supplied to us?
It is not in this allocation.
But you have allocated.
There's, in the fiscal year '23, yes. Fiscal year '24, in the budget that you and the council are discussing, it is not in this particular budget discussion for '24.
So there was no request that was made.
Well, I just think, I'd put a footnote that whatever we ultimately send to that says, if those Summerfesters show up, we ain't recommending because our feelings are hurt.
Fair enough. I do have one more question about, and I hate to bring it up again, about Mardi Gras Inc. And a lot of these are like one-off projects that we're kind of funding this year. San Rose Island Authority, this is a one-off kind of project for them. Are we going to require Mardi Gras Inc. to come back every year and do this, or are we going to put them part of the unified budget? We talked about that a little bit last time and said we would review that at the budget workshop. I think it's important for us to think about how we move forward with Mardi Gras Inc. Because their cost is only going to grow every single year. So maybe we think about being part, maybe the fourth leg of the unified
But-
budget.
But we told them that they had to get a 501c3. I agree with you, but I think we ought to see,
If they get it off the ground?
yeah,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah, I think all four of these agencies that have made requests that we're discussing right now are looking for recurring tourist development tax.
Okay.
These are not one-offs. That is the
Well, San Rose Island Authority for the
Island
trolleys.
Authority is not asking for money to purchase trolleys. They're asking for funds to defray the
Very
cost of
I got you.
operating
Okay,
them.
yeah, I got you.
but they are purchasing
They are
Okay,
purchasing.
but I see where you're at.
purchasing
Yeah,
They were-
brand-new
Okay.
Maserati trolleys
maybe. If they're
from step
for
one.
200. You're not. I'm done. It's over.
paid advertising.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
because you spent this time with this, somehow I feel like there's some sort of further request that you want to make as the chairman's prerogative
Okay.
before we get through casually discussing it.
I don't think so.
Okay. Well,
Do I?
you know, do we move to casually adjourn, or do we just walk out?
Well. I have to defer to our attorney down at the end, Commissioner Burgash. What we can and can't do.
So how's this all,
yes.
it's going to come back on an agenda for,
Yes, so we have, we've moved it from, it's in June, from the second Tuesday, I don't know where we put it,
16,
July, it's in July, isn't it?
15.
15?
What day did we move that? Our next TDC meeting?
Yeah, June 15th.
Oh, I better move it.
It was what, June?
3 o'clock?
At 3 o'clock.
So, you mean we're not going to have opportunity to implement this until June?
Seems like a long time.
Well, they're not going to implement it till after October 1st.
Yeah.
And they have, the county has, what we're trying to do is have this, our board, our council approve and make the recommendation to the county commission before they begin their workshops, so that they have our recommendation to build in, either build in or throw away.
So what was your question? Or what was your observation, casually?
Councilmember, and I'm going to direct this to the chair. You did ask about the cost of administration that the clerk had. So for last year, it was $329,000 and $329,019.
Is that
So
for the
you have
21-22 year?
21-22. So you have 315 on here. I would estimate it'd probably better to use a $350,000 number for your recommendation instead of 315. I can't imagine it's going to go down.
Right, labor costs are going up.
Correct.
Well, it damn sure ain't going to go down if we recommend 350. I mean,
So
They need
just
to be, if they're more efficient, can they do it in less time, cost less money?
So the point that I'm making, so again, when I budget the way that I do, again, if those funds aren't spent, they become part of your fund balance. Now, so whatever that actual cost is going to be what it is. So from a budgetary perspective, I put the monies where I don't have to move things around. I don't have to find monies, take monies from other things. So that's why we budget things the way that we do. So, but, you know, I don't mind your recommendation, I accept your recommendation, but I would just like to note that the 315 should probably be 350.
Well, why don't you do this, is we'll budget 315, that's our recommendation, and you know that non-restricted money that we're gonna, that's, if we need another 12 or 14 or 20 or whatever,
750?
yeah.
750 sounds good.
I just don't encourage deception.
Sure. So, but also what I would like to, just for the folks that are sitting in the background, so for the 4 agencies that have applied, they'll need to make a formal application to the county. They did not do so, so we will need that information.
Okay. Stefan, I have a question, another for you. I know that the unified budget appropriations require those agencies to provide an audit to the county, and I know how that came out as a result of the Arts Council of Northwest Florida years ago. Do all outside agencies for tourist development tax have to provide an audit that receive
We
appropriation?
request all agencies that request money from the county, they either need to have an audit or they need financial statements. So it can be either or.
When you say financial statement, just a QuickBooks report?
Normally what I see is something prepared by their accountants. It's usually more of a formal thing. It's more than a QuickBooks.
Like a review, like a financial review?
They have a contracted accountant that does their financials, and they submit that. Or sometimes we do get tax returns. Some of the general fund folks that we fund cannot afford to have audited financials, but what I have seen from those who do the TDT, they generally do have those. Some may submit their IRS returns. We have those applications right now. I have a stack of maybe 50 or so that I've got to take my eye off actually doing the budget for the board, and then that'll be the next thing that I'll look at. So
Yeah, does a complete 990 work for that? On the tax return, would that work for that as well, the 990 report for the nonprofit or not?
That would be the tax return.
it's going to be the full tax return.
Full tax, okay.
Because if I can't tell what they've actually done, what's their revenues, what's their expenses, then we kick it back and say, yeah, we need more information.
Okay, thank you.
So for the agencies who are for-profit that we have funded, like Summerfest as an example, that we've done in the past, did they provide you a tax return and/or an audit of some sort?
He provides a full report when he's done with all of his metrics. And I don't want to misspeak. I haven't looked at that in a while, but I would have to look at that.
Okay, so you don't know if they're,
Off the top
So
of
you
my
look
head,
back
I do
and-
not.
okay.
The groups that want the 250 and the 250, what you're saying is they have to file a formal application with the county? Was that before or after the Attorney General's opinion?
That was before. We get a formal application for all funding requests that come to the county. Our deadline was actually at the 1st of April, but, you know, I'm sure the commissioner doesn't mind letting these additional agencies apply through our process.
So do everybody know that you've got to file an application with the county? So I didn't know that, but it's really good. I'm going to file one.
So let's discuss that also. So we continue to get like these 4 requests after that process has passed. The county has a deadline of,
It's usually April 1st. We usually go the month of March for application purposes.
so, and they don't send it out to everybody that lives in Escambia County. They just send it out to, I believe, you just send it out to the,
People that were.
proactively send it out to those who have been previously funded, but it's up to other agencies who may be requesting funds to go to the county's website or call the county budget office to request it. These 4 agencies that we've straw vote recommend for funding have, that's why they have not filled out these applications. They didn't go through that process.
Well, did we recommend that they do an application to the county?
Just
No.
Did we?
Did we?
You just did a moment ago. Yes, sir, you did. Not formally, because this is a
All
workshop.
I'm saying is, we ought to get it all together, so but do you think we could casually adjourn?
I think, unless somebody else has any other comments or questions about the process and how we feel going forward for our official meeting, our board, our TDC meeting, not workshop. Does everybody feel good about where we were today?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, well then, I will officially call this meeting adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
We didn't do